like why am I here? What do I want to do, and what does it mean to me and everything else? Obviously.
Action. Hey guys, welcome back to Keeping It 99 here with another episode. And today, wow. Okay, let me restart that. I forgot my intro. That's crazy. All right. Dang. 3, 2, 1, action. Hey guys, welcome back to Keeping It 99, the world's most edifying podcast. And we're back here today with another episode and a very special guest, Jesse Franks. Thank you for coming on to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I watch a lot of podcasts, so it's nice to be on one and kind of see how it all works.
Yeah, it is different, like the viewing experience compared, because I watch a lot of podcasts as well. It's very different being on this side of the mic, this side of the camera.
Yeah, obviously I wouldn't know yet, but
yeah. I mean, you'll find out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get right into it. My first question for you, we're talking about a pretty heavy subject today. Mm-hmm. So my first question for you is, what are your religious beliefs, if you have any? Like, what kind of, what do you fall under?
So my kind of extended family, I'm Christian, but like me personally, I haven't been to church in a while. I don't consider myself religious. It's just kind of like my family. But I guess I grew up going to church every now and then. My family was never, super serious about religion. Although, we tried to go every now and then, and my parents like the Christian values and that kind of stuff. I remember it was during like confirmation when I was, I don't know, like 13 years old. I kind of just realized like this isn't something that I really like believe in or want to like, say I'm dedicated to, because I don't feel like I am. And I guess for me it's the whole, everyone says you have to have faith, and I like to go off purely facts, and it's I think a lot of it has to do with like how the universe was created, how we came to be, even tying into like your purpose, what life means, that type of thing. And while obviously there's not really any good answers other than if you wanted to say religion to this yet, I just it's not something that I can put my faith into and claim to be a part of a specific group.
So you're like a science over belief type of guy.
Yeah. I would rather me say there's no answer than put my faith into an answer I'm not sure of. If that makes sense.
I mean, I feel like by saying there is no answer, because like by saying no answer, you're putting your faith into the fact there's no answer.
Well, so what I guess what I meant by no answer is no answer yet. So
okay. I see what you're saying.
Maybe there is no answer. I can't say I know that there is an answer.
Okay.
But I would imagine that there's got to be some sort of something that explains it. And it's kind of a loophole of if there's a God that created us, what created that God, and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. And you can keep going in that circle. Especially like how would that be possible, considering the physics we know of Earth, and who knows if there's different other places. But until I would see proof of that, I wouldn't put my faith into some other religion that says otherwise.
Okay, so we'll start with creation here. Like, what do you really believe in terms of creation?
Honestly, the best answer is I have no idea. From the
Big Bang Theory, or like kind of like, what do you?
So, yes, but also it's like if there was nothing before that, how like what was before that nothing? Like there can't just be nothing and then there is something, and there can't be something without there having been nothing. So it's kind of like the same paradox of the universe is always expanding, but what's beyond that edge of the universe? So it's kind of like it's kind of a loop of questions that I don't think modern day science comes even close to answering.
Well, I think that's a place where kind of science and religion agrees, where it's like there can't be anything before something, right? Because here's the biggest proponent for God's existence in general is what happens if there isn't God, right? Mm-hmm. Well, like how can you if there's no such thing as God, right? Like I heard something Neil deGrasse Tyson said yesterday. He didn't say it yesterday, but I heard it yesterday. And he said, like, if you think about it, like there have been 100 billion humans on this planet, like people have died and whatever. And if you take every single combination of every genetic combination of humans, like the number is so big, 100 billion, it looks like nothing compared to it. So the fact that you are breathing this, like you are in this moment right now, no one will ever experience a moment like that before. For all the things to go right that have to go right in order for you to be in this seat right now and us having this conversation, the odds are so like, they're so unbelievably small. It's almost impossible.
It's like, it's, if you want to get, like, say there's infinitely many universes or whatever, that would also mean there's probably infinite many Earth things. And then, so it's almost impossible to say that this hasn't happened somewhere else, but it's also impossible that everything has been exactly the same. So there's a lot of things that are both impossible and have to be possible at the same time. I feel like with the things like the same situation having occurred before or something like that.
I mean, something had to create something. I agree with you that it doesn't make sense that nothing and then something. Mm-hmm. But the point I want to make is that there was never nothing.
Yeah, but how did the original something come to be if it wasn't nothing before? But how did that, like, it's...
I'm saying, like, in terms of God, like, you know, like we believe in the church that God is ever existing. There's no beginning and there is no end.
So how did God become to be?
He just is.
He just is. Okay.
You know, that's obviously that takes faith. I think, and here's the biggest point, is that if we could understand God, then that would make us God. Right? Like if we could understand everything about God and we can understand how he works and how he was, you know, how he came to be, or, you know, if he is or if he was created or whatever, if we can answer all of those questions by fact and like be like, yeah, well, this is true, then what is the point in believing in him? You see what I'm saying?
So what is God?
Okay, so that's a loaded question. I
don't. That's like a.
No, it's fine.
Okay,
it's fine.
Okay.
I think I mean, everyone has their own definition.
Okay.
Right. Like I will tell you what I believe to be the truth. You know, that God is, you know, the same God forever. That, you know, it's a Trinity. It's a triune being. 3 hypostases. Like I can tell you all those things. I mean, like that's what God is. That's what God is. You know, in not in my truth. That's a very, very bad way to put it. But in the truth that I believe, that's what God is.
Okay. So is it to you or to your church, your religion? Is he like a? I know you were saying the Trinity and some other stuff. I'm not. I don't really know what that is. I'm not gonna lie. So I just to clarify for me, is he a being, like not necessarily a human, but like that? Because I know he's typically thought of as like a person, but is that just a way to kind of like characterize him or kind of give him like a physical?
So I'll answer that for you. So there's God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit, right? In the Catholic Church. And God the Father, like, so first off, you can't understand God, right? So the point is that we have to bring him to a personal being level in order for our minds to understand what he is in relation to us, right? That's why we give him he, okay. Right? God, like, the only pronoun that is in the English language that is like genderless, if you will, is it. Mm-hmm. But God is not an it. Right, God is a personal being, so that's why we use he. Just because, like, I mean, what else? Like, there's not really much else to use. But so there's God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit, and they're 3 in 1, like 3 in 1 and 1 in 3.
Okay.
It is very hard to like understand and to like explain. But that's kind of like what the Catholic Church believes. I know, like, for example, in Islam, there's one God, Allah, and that's it. You know, in Hinduism, you have. I mean, the number is insane, the amount of gods. Buddhism, same thing. But like, I think the point is that there has to be something like a God or like a being above like there has to be something. Because if there's not something, then like nothing makes sense, right?
I would agree with that.
Okay, so we can agree on that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So so there has to be a God. So the real question becomes like, what is the real God? You know, and when there's so many things that prove that, you know, there's a lot of things even in science that proves that there has to be a God, right? I mean, like here the best thing you can say is like, you know, like there's no science to define that definitively prove there is a God, and there's no science to definitively prove there isn't a God, right? And science is always changing. I mean, like for example, like Einstein's laws of relativity, like we have found special cases where those don't hold true. You know?
Yeah. When you said there's no science to prove that there is a God, but there's also no science to prove that there isn't. I feel like when there's not science to prove that there is, at least for me, then it's like the innocent until proven guilty thing. However you want to twist that into the same situation, but it's until there would be proof that there is. I personally couldn't put my faith into the fact that science doesn't prove that there isn't. If that makes sense.
Okay. Sure, but by that logic, then the things that are in quantum mechanics didn't exist till 1950. But that's not true. I mean, they've existed forever, right? Like the way how light works, like that didn't change just because we found out that how light works, you know?
Yeah, and if science one day proved that there was, then obviously I wouldn't deny that it hadn't existed before that point. It's just like if like with the quantum mechanics thing, if someone had been talking about that before it was proven, I would have said something like, you know, I'm not gonna put my faith into it, but if like it was found out to be true, then I would obviously retract that and you know, acknowledge that it was the truth.
Okay.
So I guess same thing in the future. If there somehow was a way to definitively prove that there was a God or some godlike, whatever definition you wanted to define it as, then I would retract that. I don't think that there is one, and I would you know, believe that there was one. But
why does there have to be proof? Like why does science like why are you like my I guess the real question is like, why put your faith in science? Because science or the discoveries in science are man-made. So why would you put your faith in something? Not that science is man-made, but the discoveries are man-made. So why would you put your faith in what humans can come up with?
So I would say science for me is not necessarily all about what we discover, but more about the way that, like, you know, this ceiling is staying. Like we know why the ceiling's staying up. We know how these light bulbs are working. We know for a fact, and we understand why this is happening. I'm losing my track here. Like science to me is truth. Like we know how our world works right now to a point, just based off truths we have discovered and figured out. And so that's, we live our lives based off these truths, scientific truths that we're aware of and have been discovered. So when something's not, you know, proven and scientifically discovered, as I said earlier, it's not something that I'm going to look at and decide, okay, even though everything else I go by in my day-to-day life is based off these scientific truths, I'll go ahead and put my faith into this one without it being the same amount of provenness.
Okay, sure. Do you believe in historical truth? Like the truth that like written down history exists, and that like what's written down we believe that to happen in the past?
I would like to think that people in the past have written down things that are true, but I'm sure that through various translations or interpretations of individual humans, that not everything has been passed down about any topic in general is 100% how it happened or a truth.
How far back would you go in time and say, from this point on, everything written down I know is true?
Never. Even today, I know everything that's written down isn't
like, sorry, true. Like, yeah, that was a bad question. Like, where would you go back and be like, everything written down, like, for example, like in your history book from this point on is true? or like in your science book, like things that we know are, or we say we know are facts?
It's a good
Like
question.
what, because you said like it could change as time goes on. So what is
Yeah.
that point? Like, is it 1950? Is it 1800? Like what is that timeline-ish type of thing?
It's a pretty hard question, honestly, because there's obviously right now we believe that we're in a time where it's like we know these are concrete facts, but you could also say people back then, which I don't know, back, you know, pre like early ages of civilized beings could have thought that as well.
So you're saying like up until 3000 BC?
Not necessarily. I'm just saying I think there's a very large gray area between humans first existing, like a modern day human first existing, and then like I don't know, the last handful of hundred of years maybe.
So
That's
until like,
I'm not, that's not like completely defined. I think there's just some gray area between that way far back period and then up to somewhat recently in history.
so let's say like the Middle Ages, just for the
That's
simplicity.
That's what no,
It's like 1500-ish.
15, yeah.
Protestant Revolution.
Somewhere around there. You could argue. I could say the gray area maybe ends, plus or minus a couple hundred years, I guess.
Okay, that's fine. So, so let's say like let's just say from when American colonies were founded. Okay, because we believe pretty much all the history in American colonies from then on. Okay. So there's been multiple instances of God's presence or saintly presences, at least in the Coptic Church, from what I can speak of, from this time period on. Would you believe that those things are true?
Could you describe to me what some of these?
I'll give you one. In the early 1900s, trying to think of the exact date, or not early, sorry, mid 1970s, 1973, I think is the date. I'll have to fact check that. It'll be somewhere on the screen.
Okay.
But sometime in the 1970s, 1960s, sometime around there, in a church in Egypt, above the church in Egypt, Saint Mary appeared for 3 whole years.
What does that mean?
Like a physical, like there's pictures of it, like a physical, not like a human, but like a vision, I guess, of Saint Mary appeared. Right. This is before the time of projectors and before, not really projectors, but it's before any technology that could have created some sort of image above this church. And it was seen by millions of people, Muslim, Christian, documented in newspapers, documented, in all sorts of, just in general in mainstream media. Is that event true?
I would have to know more about it before I could. I don't want to say anything about it unless I knew more about it, because I'm not, obviously I'm assuming everything you're telling me is what you know to be true, and it could be the truth. But I'm saying I don't know from my own personal standpoint what's going on and all that kind of stuff. So
sorry, I'm just trying to think of an example.
I mean, it's a good example, I guess. Trying to think of what.
Let's just say, for the simplicity of this discussion, like that the sources are fact checked. Like this is an event, right?
Okay.
Did 7 million people lie about it?
I don't think it could lie. Probably not. It could have been some sort of interpretation that varied. My other question to that would be because Mary's a Christian thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, yes, mainly.
Okay. So if a mostly solely Christian, I guess I'll call her figure, had appeared, how come any other religion wouldn't have had similar experiences, and how come there would be so many different religions that are all going to have some sort of their own proof of God, all that kind of stuff?
Okay, that's a great question. My very simple answer for you is that Christianity is true.
Okay.
That's a completely different discussion. I will outright say, like, I do not believe Islam is a true. I mean, like, it is a true religion. It exists. I don't think everything that happened to Muhammad was necessarily true.
Okay. I don't know a lot about
the
separate religions other than very basic. So
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, for me, Christianity is true.
Okay.
So why does this happen to Christianity? Because it's real. Like,
Okay.
it's not, a dupe. Whereas in other religions, like, I would say there's aspects, or even the entire religion as a whole is just a made up thing. Like, and there's so many things that go on. You can even say, like, even in just secular society, like the moon landing, people think was fake. Do you think the moon landing was fake?
I would like to think not.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it's extremely documented.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
In order for it to be fake, the amount of people that have had to lie about it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my point, is that, if you take that mindset and you apply it to the Bible, right, where the amount of things that, people would have to lie about, and the amount of people that would have to lie about it, and the way, if you look at the way how the Bible was put together, and all these things, like, if you really study it, there is almost no way that it can't be true, or that at least these things happened. Like, these things had to have happened.
So if God is omnipresent, he's everywhere throughout the foreseeable universe, how come so many of these experiences seem to be so specific to humans? And like Mary, she's portrayed as as a female human, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So how would a figure of God such as that be so specific to us when there's so many other things it could have been?
Well, Mary is not God. Mary is just a person.
Yeah, but it's all kind of tied into the. Okay, no, I'm going to territory I don't know what I'm talking about, so I won't talk about.
No, I respect
Mary.
that, honestly.
Yeah, because I can't say I know the whole. Yeah, you
That's
get
fine.
the point.
Yeah,
You get
yeah.
the point. So why is it so specific to a lot of the signs of God? How come they're so specific to the human race and involve?
Okay, that's a good question. I think it's because, like, that's the only way we can understand it, right? Because, like, let's say a dog came from heaven. Okay, the dog's gonna be barking at us. So what? Like let's say the entire story of salvation happened with a dog. We're not gonna, like, there's no way that we're gonna ever be able to understand the point of this dog that won't stop barking. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, the only way for Jesus to make sense to us is to be human, right?
So,
the only way for God to come and save us and to make sense to us is for him to become us, because we're so limited.
So why couldn't other signs, such as, like, I don't know, something completely like, I'm trying to think of some kind of example.
Like a plague, or like a...
Not necessarily. I mean, this is a dumb example, but it's an example nonetheless. Like, some sort of water from the ocean comes together and forms some sort of structure made out of water, and it's like solid, like you could go walk in it, and it just happened out of nowhere. Like, why couldn't it be something? No, obviously not exactly that, but something like that, where it's some sort of unexplainable phenomenon, and it's clearly not possible, and something that we could achieve ourselves.
Because no one would believe it.
Okay.
Humans, like, think about if this happened now. Okay, let's just say it happened now. People will be, oh, it's CGI. That's fake. I mean, like, people, if they don't want to believe it, just won't believe it, right? No matter what you give to them. I mean, even there are people who believe the Earth is flat. I mean, like, what are you going to tell them?
Yeah.
Right? Like,
send them up on a spaceship, I guess.
Yeah. They still think it's flat. Like, there's nothing you can do to convince them that the Earth is not flat. Right? That same thing, it's like, why doesn't the water come together and make a whatever? Like Atlantis. Like, people just won't buy it. Right? No one's going to believe it.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, like, back then, right, when you couldn't just take a picture and send it, we had to write it down. And imagine you're a historical journalist you're just a journalist in 2000 BC, and there's a water structure, right? You're like, how do you explain that in writing?
Yeah.
Without people thinking you're writing a poem, or without people thinking, you know what I'm saying? So I guess it's a good question, like, why did it have to be human? But it's also, like, because it makes sense for it to be human, right? God's going to do if God exists, and we believe that he's perfect, and we believe that he has, he's way beyond us in understanding, then he's going to do the thing that if we think it's most logical, then, I mean, it probably is, somewhere in that logic. You know what I'm saying?
So, do you think God wants every person, let's just Earth as to keep it, like, instead of saying some other aliens, every God wants every person, every human on Earth to believe in Him and to have faith in Christianity? Like, do you think that that's something that God wants from every person on Earth?
Yeah.
Okay, so why would He not have spoken to everybody directly, like, I don't know, telepathically?
I love that question.
Or I can't say I've seen a definitive sign of God myself. So
Okay.
why would He not show me something to convince me that He is true?
So, one of the best quotes I've ever heard in my life, forgot who it's by, but it's that you will only see God if you want to see God. And there's a very easy explanation and reason why. God, when He created us, if you believe in the story of creation, He gave humanity free will. He gave humanity the choice to choose Him or sin, right? The first choice that He gave was, there's this tree, don't eat of it. That's the first choice He gave to Adam and Eve, was you can either eat of this tree and fall, or you can trust me and believe in me and have a relationship with me. And obviously, you know how the story goes.
Yeah.
Even Adam and Eve ate from the tree, and here we are today. So God gave us this free will to choose Him or not to choose Him. He's not going to force Himself down you, right? A lot of times people say God's going to send you to hell. Sure, because He's the judge and He has the authority to send people to hell. But in reality, you would send yourself to hell, because in these 80 years on earth, 90 years on earth, you didn't choose to have God with you. So why would He force you to stay with Him for eternity, right? Like, if we believe
is heaven staying with God and hell is not staying with God?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
So let's say, if we believe that God is merciful and we believe that He gave us free will and that He will honor our choice of free will, then why would He force Himself on us, right? You can see this in earthly relationships with your parents, right? You hear all the time of kids, growing up not wanting to talk to their parents, and when they grow up, their parents don't talk to them. Why? Because they're not going to force themselves to talk to you. You didn't want to. And the same thing, with your friends. If there's this one friend that this dude that you don't want to talk to, you're just not going to talk to him. He's not going to be like, oh, why isn't he talking to me? Or you're not going to say like, oh, why is he not talking to me? Well, you're showing him that you don't appreciate him or you don't want to talk with him. Why would He talk to you?
Yeah.
Right? The same way God, He doesn't want to make us uncomfortable. If we think that us being comfortable, He knows that the most comfortable thing is to be with Him. But if we think that means by ourselves, go away, God, then He's not going to be like, no, I'm down your throat. No, He'll be like, okay, fair enough. You chose.
So what if you're saying that someone who wasn't with God would want to have some sort of negative stance towards having God in their life, based off what I feel like you just said. So if I wouldn't say that if there is a God that, if I thought He was there, that I would, have some sort of malice towards Him, or I wouldn't want to believe or have Him be a part of my life. So why would He not show someone like me who's willing to accept something that I believe true, but at this moment don't feel like I've been shown enough to think it was true? If He thought it was in my best interest to be with Him, why would there not be more of an effort made to have me see that in Him?
Well, God has done the ultimate effort. So what I will say is that everything that you need to believe in Christianity is there, right? Like, it really is there. The answers to every question you could ask, they're there. Like, it's not a mystery, or at least every question pertaining to our salvation. It's not a mystery, right? It's very obvious. Like, you do this. This is why. This is why. You ask, whatever. Like, there's always answers to the questions. I think a lot of times we just don't. Even me personally, don't look for those answers. We just want the easy way out, because Christianity is hard. It's not easy. True Christianity, at least. And it's not about, if you believe in this in Christianity, and you're like, you know, why do I have to like put effort in, or why do I have to accept, you know, what God is saying, or why do I have to believe in the Bible and all these things? It's because that's the only way. Because if you don't, like, let's say you believe that God exists, but you don't believe in the image of what God is, right? Like we'll say Christianity is true, okay? If I'm like, I'm going to believe in God, but I'm going to believe in Islam, then you're not believing in God fully, right? You're believing, I mean, and again, it's up to God to decide who goes to heaven, who goes to hell. That is completely outside of my jurisdiction, right? God can decide, you know, if God wants to make separate levels of hell or separate levels of heaven, that's up to him, right? I don't know, and that's not important to me, right? It's not important to anyone. So if God wants to say level 1, level 2, level 3, whatever, that's up to him. So, but I know for me, I'm gonna believe what is the most true, what is the most complete form of Christianity, or the most complete form of what God is. So I don't think it's more about, you know, why wouldn't God put more effort in? I think it's more of, like, again, it goes like, he has already done everything, right? He's waiting for you to come to him. And if you don't want to, again, he's just going to be like, okay. You know, like, it's not about not hating God. It's about loving God, you know?
Is part of Christianity believing that there's like, you have a set destiny that you follow, and it's like God has a plan for you, and you're following that pretty much no matter what?
So God knows everything. So because God is infinite, then he has to know everything, right? If he is no beginning, no end, he's from the beginning of time. If he is above time, then he understands everything that is under time, right? So God knows whether I'm going to choose him in the end or not. God already knows. He's not going to change the decision, but he knows. He's aware.
So for what you're saying is that it's more of a he knows rather than he's planning it type of thing?
God is actively planning an avenue. That's a good question. God physically designs us, right? We believe God literally weaves us together. And he puts us together, and he puts us in this path and in this situation where, it's a good question. I think it's not like he knows everything. And I think, again, I don't know how God makes decisions, so I can't answer that for you.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. I think, I don't know. He just puts us in the best scenario possible for us. But he knows what the outcome will be, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So, like, he puts us in the best scenario possible. So, like, whatever your end is, that was the best possible based on the decisions that you were going to make regardless.
Okay. So
it's a loaded question.
I guess, well, my original intent of the question was as like Christianity as a whole, not necessarily from what you've said. Is it a belief that like your destiny is planned? That might be
destiny as in like heaven is planned, or destiny as in like
what I'm gonna do tomorrow is preset. Like every step, everything I do is gonna lead up to that point, and then it's if I try to change it, it's.
No, you can change it. You have free will.
Okay.
But God knows what you're gonna choose. Okay. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right, like he knows the path you're gonna take, but he's not gonna change anything about it. And like in your present self, you can change your future, but that future is already known. It's not set, but it's known. You know?
Mm-hmm. So say you're newborn. God is aware that you never decide to devote your life to Christianity from the get-go, and he sees the step-by-step. You know, let's even put it someone who's separate from society. Like they're completely off the grid. They don't even know what religion is, so they never even have a chance to believe in God. Assuming you don't think he shows them some sort of sign. What would be stopping him from, like you said, that he knows what we're going to do, and the reason he doesn't necessarily show himself to everybody is because some people either don't want to believe or it wouldn't make a difference. I guess people, like if someone was like that, would you think he would show himself to there, or and if not, would they go to hell for not believing in God?
So hell or heaven again? I can't tell you who's going to heaven or hell. Okay. For all I know, I could go to hell.
Okay.
Right.
So I thought your early definition of heaven versus hell is heaven is if you believe in God and you devote your life to Christianity, you go to heaven, and vice versa for hell.
I mean, that's what I have faith in. Okay. Right. But the individual case of does this person go to heaven or hell? That's a way above my pay grade. Right?
So would you believe that someone who didn't have faith in God or Christianity, would they be? Do you think? Okay, I guess that's kind of like.
I mean, they could possibly go to heaven.
Okay.
And if God wants to take everyone into heaven, I'm not complaining.
Okay.
If God wants to take no one into heaven, I'm not complaining. Right? God, He is. I believe and I know that He is perfect, and I know that He'll do the best for humanity and for society. If it is best that everyone goes to hell, so be it.
So best for humanity and society. This is, as it's a cliche, but like, what if like was, and it stop me if this is like a too loaded of a question. Like, why was 9/11 good for society? That might.
Why was it?
Okay.
Why was I can't answer why was it good for society, but was it good for? So here's the thing. I think a lot of times as we get very caught up in the individualistic perspectives of, God showing to me or to this person, right? I was going to allude to that in your previous question. Like, I think God does things because His plan is so perfect, right? God does things not just for one person, not just for a group of people, but it's for everyone and anyone, if that makes sense. Like, every single person has some takeaway from it, positive, negative, whatever, some way it affects their life. And like, there's just so many layers and so many things that we will never understand about everything that happens. Like COVID. COVID's a great example, right? For a lot of people, COVID killed them. Mm-hmm. Worst possible scenario, right? For a lot of, at least in our human minds, worst possible scenario. For a lot of people, COVID, allowed them to create a business or to create whatever, to become successful or to whatever. For a lot of people, it led to hardship. But why did God allow COVID to happen? There is no way to answer that question. You're right? Like, I can tell you my personal reason. Why did God let COVID happen for me?
Okay.
Right?
Like for you personally, for me, for what you view as the net.
Exactly.
Benefit.
For me compared before COVID and after COVID, right? Every single person has a different story, right? And I think the best part about Christianity is that hope, is that no matter what happens, there's always that hope that things will become, that you will unite with God one day, that things will become perfect, that everything you've done will be for a reason. And that goes back to this original question of what is the purpose of life? And that's, I think for me personally, one of the biggest proponents for why religion and specifically Christianity has to exist. Because without purpose, nothing makes sense.
I can understand that part of it from the meaning of life aspect. Let me just make sure my parents haven't texted me.
No, you're good.
Okay, yeah, we're good. Yeah, that's something I think that comes across my mind. I don't know about on the daily, but fairly often it's like why am I here? What do I want to do? And what does it mean to me and everything else? Obviously, I'm sure many other people, including I would think everyone has some sort of it of the, this is the drive to, make some like phenomenal change to the world, something that's truly lasting and is a truly meaningful accomplishment, change, whatever you want to call it. But the thing for me is, like, you look throughout history and it's like I don't think there's everything changed the world, but I don't think anything was so truly special that it makes like a certain person's purpose in life be some, I don't know, see, I think there's just nothing to compare it to even like define it as like a perfect purpose, if that makes sense. Because I don't think there's even people who have done massive good for a world, even like massive bad, or like cause some huge change. It's like even that is, it goes down in the history books, but it's not. I don't want to say unforgettable, but at some point in history, like everything will have been looked on past. Like I'm sure there's probably, I don't know. I'm trying to think of it. I don't want to say some. So there's certain big things I want to use as examples, but I don't want to use them as. I don't want to say there's certain things to be forgotten.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Right. You will forget things, but I think there are certain things that will never be forgotten.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest of those things is the life of Christ.
That was a pretty good response to that. Yeah.
Honestly, I don't think that is the one thing that will never die. And the reason why is because it's explicitly stated, in the Bible, right? God will always provide for his harvest. And I believe that with my full heart, right? If you think about it, there's so many dark times in Christianity. I mean, I can tell you from the Coptic church perspective, there's a lot of dark times. Like our calendar years, like we're in the calendar year 17 something. Because we start our calendar when the persecution of Coptic Christians started. And it's continuing till now, right? There was a time where being a Coptic Christian was a crime, where you get your tongue cut off, where you get your head cut off. Did it die?
I don't mean to interrupt, but what's the difference between what separates Coptic from the rest of the Christian world?
In a very brief summary, the original church split into two, the Orthodox Church and at the time it's called Eastern Western, but it becomes the Oriental Orthodox and then the Eastern/Catholic Church, Eastern Orthodox/Catholic Church, at the Council of Chalcedon in 346 AD. Then later on, the Catholic Church splits from the Greek Church, the Catholic Church splits from the Protestant Church, and whatever.
So on and so forth.
So the Coptic Church is up in that Oriental Orthodox from the original church, back in 300 AD. But there was a time where, speaking Coptic, the language Coptic, which is the only reason why we can read the Rosetta Stone, was like you would get your tongue cut off, right? And so, but God always provided. We still use Coptic in our services. It's not a dead language. We can read the Rosetta Stone because of it, right? No matter what, no matter how limited the church was going to be, there's always someone or something or a group or whatever that will some way, sometime later on, God will emerge again. Christianity is the only thing to have lasted this long and, not waver, you can say now as Christianity as a whole, it's one of the worst times in Christianity as a whole.
Worst meaning like the least amount of believers,
or the greatest amount of believers leaving the faith, or or the world in general. There's so many things with this world that we've never seen before.
What was the opposite of the Great Awakening? There was a term. There's an event, right? It was. I forget what it was from last year.
It's not clicking.
Something where there was a lot of people that were leaving religious institutions.
Yeah, the Enlightenment is like a good example.
Okay, yeah. That's what I was looking for. Yeah, is this like are we in like a? I don't know if it's that's.
Well, we're not
we're
not really in an enlightenment. We're more in like a de-illuminating enlightenment, So we're going backwards.
And enlightenment was more about. There's a lot of
discovery, science, politics. Okay. We're not doing anything positive with the direction the world is going in right now. In my personal perspective, there are obviously people who think it's positive. I would argue they are not in the right state of mind. That's what I'll say. But anyways, God will always provide. So that's my point where it's why is Christianity, why is it true? Because nothing stands that test of time with this much strength and not be true. Nothing does, right? Galileo, when he discovered, stars, people were like, oh, you're crazy. They're stars. You're not going to say no, right? When Copernicus was he was the guy that said there was orbits, right? Was that him? Or was that Galileo? Whatever.
All the names jumbled together.
They're all jumbled together. But whoever said the earth is round and there are planets, and people were like, oh, you're crazy. The Catholic Church, excommunicated them, whatever. They weren't wrong. They were right. So the point is that after all this time, Christianity, you can't prove it wrong. Like no one has been able to give a solid proof as to how it's not right. So like that for me is again one of the biggest proponents for Christianity is if all these people who are extremely smart can't prove it wrong, then like it can't be wrong, you know?
I guess it's kind of back to what we were talking about earlier, whether you can definitively prove that it is right. I know you said there was some I don't know what you'd call it.
I mean, there's some things in scientific and historical like facts that prove that some sorts of aspects of Christianity have to be true.
Such as what? I'm not doubting you. I'm just curious what it is.
For example, Jesus' life. Jesus happened. Like he is a person. Historically, he is a human being.
I don't know enough to say that I do believe it, but I would like you know what I'm saying. Like I would acknowledge that
he exists as a human.
Yes, I would think based off all this that he would have almost certainly been a person. Yeah.
So like that's one thing. I mean, there's like for example, like there is here's a good one that the water, like the earth came, like in creation, the earth came out from the water, right? And in science believes that there was water and then there was like land that came after the water. Okay, so that's another thing in the story of creation. Even if you look at the way how evolution works, humans are last. I mean, there's birds before us, there's whales before us. If you look in the order of creation, it matches the order of evolution, and this was written way before that was even a thing.
So is this like this Christianity? I don't think it doesn't deny evolution, right? It's just saying that it's a parallel type thing.
Different sects of Christianity believe different things.
Okay.
The Catholic Church believes that evolution did not exist.
Okay.
There's no such thing as evolution. There is microevolution, so species can adapt, they can change, whatever. But we did not come from monkeys. No.
Okay.
That's kind of the thing. But like those are a couple things in science that kind of back up the Bible, at least, or Christianity. So, or aspects of it. So it's not like, you know, it's not wrong, right? There's nothing to prove it's wrong, but there's things that prove that at least parts of it are right.
So does Christianity, it may not have an answer, but is Earth the sole inhabitable planet for any sort of life form?
If there is another inhabitable planet, it's not important for our salvation.
Okay.
That's your answer.
So
from the Bible's perspective.
Meaning like
if aliens exist, who cares? It's not important, kind of type of thing.
But God would still have governance over them, right?
I mean, if they existed, yeah.
Okay.
But again, that's not important for us to know. If you're asking if I personally believe aliens exist, the answer is no. I do not personally believe. This is my personal opinion, so I have to say that for the camera. No, I do not think aliens exist. I think it just, especially if you're someone who believes in science and not in Christianity and not in a God, then there's no way that aliens exist, because there is no way that there are enough coincidences that happen to have another society like this or better. That's impossible.
My opinion on
it's so improbable that it's.
I think we're either the only one, or there's, and it's a fairly common take, but we're the only ones, or there's infinitely many more of them. Because there's not going to be 2 or 3. It's going to be
exactly.
It's kind of an all or nothing thing. But
I don't think it's all. So
I don't know if I have if I sway one way necessarily. I would. I would say based off just the infiniteness of the universe, which even then is incomprehensible. So it could just not even mean anything. But that there almost has to be something else. But at the same time, I don't know.
I feel like if there was something else, we'd know definitive by now. Like it doesn't make sense for there not to be anything else. Or like the question, like, did the aliens build the pyramids? No. Like, it's just, there's so many things wrong with that mindset. Like, if aliens came down, like, what would be the point of aliens coming down, building the pyramids, and then just leaving? There's no that has got to be the dumbest thing.
I don't think the aliens built the pyramids, so I'm not going to argue on that one.
If I was an alien, okay, and I traveled halfway across the universe, I would not just build a pyramid and leave. All right, that's not what I'm doing. Right? I'm taking over the planet, and I'm gonna live here. All right. I'm not about to spend the rest of my time going all the way back. Just come here, build a pyramid, and go all the way back. You know what I'm saying?
We should also be assuming that the alien we're talking about is a humanoid thing that's similar enough to us to do something like that. It could be something.
I mean, if I am a living creature, I'm not going to travel all that time to build a pyramid and go back to where I came from, and that pyramid does nothing. You know?
Yeah, I'm certainly
time.
I'm certainly not arguing that the aliens made the pyramids.
Yeah,
But the logic of it, at least, I mean, it could be something that these whatever life forms they don't have the same methods of transportation that we do. They could have some other form of whatever. But
I still think they'd be back for more than
quite
by
possible.
now. You know, if they can just disappear, then they would have appeared by then.
I was going to ask it back to the original point you made about how if you're non-religious, then you'd almost have to say that we're the only one. I'm not sure that might have been part of what you didn't explain already. But what was your the path you would have gone down there about why, if you're not a religious person, that it would make a lot more sense for us to be the only ones.
Oh yeah, because if you believe that this entire world is coincidences upon coincidences, or bacteria, and then water, and then for it to be habitable, and then have a ozone layer, and then have an atmosphere, and then have the ground come up out of nowhere, and then have plants, and then have those plants turn into other organisms, and then have bees, and then have this and have that. You see the point? Like there's so many things that have to be exactly right. But
at the same time, if the universe is as infinite as we currently believe, it's almost like there also has to be some point where those same coincidences have occurred as well.
But you can't find two human beings other than twins, but twins happen because of a different reason.
Yeah.
You can't find two human beings that are exactly alike. So
we might not have a
how would that make sense?
Maybe we need a larger pool, because I mean at some point
two snowflakes are not alike. You want a larger pool than that? Like how are you gonna? If there's no two snowflakes that are the same, then how in the world is there gonna be an entire world that has enough of the same things to have living creatures on it?
You could even argue you need, because the amount of snowflakes have ever fallen on Earth compared to the amount of planets in the
but not even two are the same.
Yeah.
So if not even two, like if we're saying there's infinite, so there's infinitely many, then there's more than two.
Well, so right? if humans are made up of DNA, which has there's specific codes, at some point in some time, obviously there's I don't know how many, there's hundreds of millions, hundreds of billions, trillions of strands of DNA in us. At some point in history, obviously, if it's hundreds of trillions, it could be. I mean, it would be almost impossible in our time frame to have had that happen. But at some point, those codes have to match up. It's like having a 20-digit long number, and then you're just using a random number generator. Eventually, you have to get that same one. If
but the odds are so.
They are.
So, like, when you say eventually, I mean if you go at a rate of 10 trillion a second, it'll still take you like 10 trillion years to get it perfect.
Yeah.
Which that's why because I don't think the universe is 10 trillion years old. That number isn't even comprehensible by us.
Right, and I would also say that the infiniteness of the universe is also not comprehensible. If it's truly
an
infinite universe, then it doesn't even matter if 10 trillion is a minute number in terms of how big the universe could be. And this is something I'm not
sure.
I don't even know how it's one of these things I don't feel like I have an issue to myself about, like if it's back then when it said earlier, like how could the universe be ever expanding, but how could it not be, and what's beyond, even if it is expanding, what's beyond that expansion line, and like all that kind of stuff. So it's I don't know, it's all theory.
And that's why that's my point, where it's like, the universe is still expanding. Like, what's past it? Like, how does that not prove that God exists? I still can't get behind that, because it's like, if you really believe there's nothing, then something has to be making the universe expand. Something has to be actively making that happen. And if there's no place for it to go, something has to be actively making space for it.
Yeah, my comment there is that I don't believe that. I don't have a belief in those. I just think it's a it's something I think is interesting.
I mean, for all we know, it could be a
it's
math error. So
It's unsolvable, and I like to play with it in my mind about what the different answers that are. But I wouldn't say I believe one way or the other. There could be some third way that's I don't even it's yeah I don't it's all for me it's all theory. I don't necessarily believe one certain thing about that. So I see what you're saying about, like, if you did think it was ever expanding, then it would make sense to believe in this. And I'm not saying I necessarily 100% agree with that, but I would see where you're coming from there. But I don't know if anyone can truly say or believe one way or the other on whether the universe is truly expanding or if it's
because I would argue again it's not important to know if it's truly expanding, and I would also argue that
I don't mean for like Christianity as a whole. I'm just saying, like, if you're saying you believe in the whole universe thing, then it makes sense that you also connect this back to Christianity. I think it's somewhat separate from.
I mean, obviously there's a way you can separate it where you can combine it, but I think it gives more of a case for it than if you don't. Like if you don't believe in a God, then believing that the universe is expanding gives more of a case for that there is a God than if you don't believe it's expanding.
Yeah, I don't think either one of the options makes sense, honestly. So that's what I just think religion is the answer to a question with no answer. That's kind of my consensus on religion. So
that's interesting.
Yeah.
So you believe that there's like the question being like, why are we here? There's no answer for that. Well, by definition, there has to be an answer.
Yeah.
If the answer is coincidence, that's still an answer. So there has to be an answer.
Well, that's the conundrum, is what could the answer possibly be?
Well, the Christian answer is because God loves us. That's why we're here.
But what is God's motive in all this? Not that I'm saying, I don't think Christians think that he's here to get something out of it, but like what originally brought God into our foreseeable universe and to create all this?
Well, I would argue, first off, I'd say God created the universe.
Okay.
But
so why would he have created the universe?
So I think that first off, I don't think we can ever understand God's motives.
Okay.
But if I had to put a human thing onto it, it's that God's love is it's infinite. Okay, it's literally never ending. It is so immense and so infinite that God is not containable. God is like, there is no containing God into anything, right? So something has to be for God. God is, so there has to be. If that makes sense.
Yeah, so I know a lot of the things I've brought up. You have the answer seems for you to come from Christian terms. It seems the one answer that Christianity can't answer is why. And so is there? Obviously, I know you're saying that put it in human terms. It's God's.
Well, I think we can't understand why. Okay. I think that's what the answer is. That's where that faith comes in.
Yeah.
Right. Like. Again, like. If there's a definitive why, then there would be no purpose in life.
Okay.
There just wouldn't, right? If we could sit down and have it written on a piece of paper, why, and that is definitive, and everyone believes that, and there's no question about it, there's no purpose in life on earth.
Yeah, even if,
because if the purpose of earth is to go, in a Christian perspective, is to go back to the original creator and to unite with him again, then like if the purpose was nothing, then that wouldn't make, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think so. So what would have, how is it possible for God to have always been present? Like how does,
because he just is. God is.
Yeah, but is,
It's God is not a person. Like he's a person, but he's not a human being. Sorry.
but then that would have been something came from nothing for God to have.
No, there just was never nothing.
But how is that possible?
That's the point.
I don't know. I don't know how it's possible for there to have always been something, but I don't.
There is no understanding of it.
Yeah, I would agree that there is.
Like I think that's kind of
understanding
like
it.
that's just like the play where it ends. Like there's no way you're like we can sit here and talk about it all day, but like there's no way either anyone on the planet is ever going to understand how is there something before nothing before something, and everyone agrees that there cannot be nothing before something. So something has to have always been there.
Yeah, but at the same time, how could something have always been there?
It just had to, like, in order for anything to make sense, it just had to have been. It's not important why or how did that happen. It's more about the fact that it is true. You know, like, how does 1 + 1 equal 2?
I mean,
Like, how does, like, who came, like, how has it been came up with that 1 and 1 is 2? Why is it not 2 + 2 = 1? Why is it 1 and 1 is 2?
well, there, I think, I mean, you take, we label a single unit as 1, and we labeled 2 of those single units as 2. So, I mean, it's, at that point there, I think it's just, we just came up with labels for how to do it. I don't think it's necessarily,
And I think in
1
the
plus
same-
1 just is. I think it's labels
But
to describe.
it holds mathematically true and physically true in all scenarios. So it can't just be a label. There is a truth to it.
Yes. Yeah.
So the point is that it's like it just is. It's just what it is, you know?
Yeah, but like when you say 1 + 1 is 2, it's and that's
It's obviously more understandable because
Yeah.
humans created 1 + 1 equaling 2, right?
Yeah.
So if we created it, we can understand it. See the point here? We didn't create ourselves, so we can't understand ourselves fully.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? There's so many things we don't understand about humanity after all these years. And no amount of science is ever going to tell us everything.
Yeah.
Actually, the more they're discovering, the more they're realizing it's impossible for humans to exist.
Yeah.
So there has to be something outside of it.
Yeah. It seems like to me either both options seem impossible. That's like
Well, so one has to be true.
unless there's some unless we're just like you said that we're unable to understand certain things about God. It could be the same thing with the creation of the universe and
I mean,
going as far back
sure.
as you want to. Like I wouldn't.
And I wouldn't say when the Bible says it was created in 7 days, it's created in 7 days. Because God is above time. So I think that was so we can understand what's going on.
Yeah.
Any last thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think of something to say about it, but I feel like everything I've kind of exhausted my
Yeah, my mind's
Things
tied
on
too,
it.
I'm not going to lie. Woo! All right, well, thank you, Jesse, for coming on the podcast.
Yeah,
really
thank you.
appreciate it.
This is fun.
Yeah, you got to nominate someone now to come on.
Okay. I know one of my buddies who's also he's a religious person, but I mean obviously he's more than just that. But Zohir Ismail.
Oh.
I don't know if you know him.
I do know.
I know I would mention him as coming, and he expressed some interest. I know, and he's also he's a very
He's smart.
very interesting person. Yeah, he's smart, very interesting person. He's kind of like he's different isn't the right word because that makes it like here you're probably I don't know if you've seen this or not. I don't like that's not the right word. But he's just like he's
Not average.
yeah he doesn't like remind me of anybody else. If that makes sense. Like he's kind of
Yeah,
like he's like his own
unique.
He reminds me of him. That's yeah
Unique, yeah.
unique in like a like even I wouldn't like even good way or bad way isn't like he's so here.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna stop talking.
I feel you.
think
I
the
feel
point,
you.
Yeah.
All right, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn on post notifications, and share. And see you next week. Thank you.
Yeah.